Tesla shares are surging today. The electric car maker set a record for deliveries in the second quarter with 95,200 vehicles delivered, beating Wall Street's estimates of just over 90,000, according to FactSet. And here to discuss this with us is Autoblog editor-in-chief Greg Migliore. So, Greg, what do you make of this delivery record? What does it mean for Tesla?
So thanks for having me, guys. Tesla had a great quarter. They delivered cars, they beat expectations, and their stock reflected that success. Quite simply, Tesla needs to keep doing this. Keep doing this through the end of the year, keep doing this next year. They're executing on their strategy, and this is basically how you put points on the board and win. Tesla needs to keep doing exactly this.
Greg, some mind-blowing results out of Ram truck. Should Ford ultimately be scared of the Ram truck?
Well, I think right now Ford still has a pretty sizable lead. The F-150 has been the top-selling vehicle in the country since, I believe, the late 1970s. Chevy, however, should be quite scared of the Ram. Ram has outsold the Silverado by about 40,000 units so far this year. That is significant. That is a huge lead right now for Ram. So it'll be interesting to see how the second half of the year shakes out. Big size trucks are it's a tough fight, so we'll see what happens next.
Greg, Dan Roberts here. Good to have you back on our airwaves. Our colleague Rick Newman earlier today was pointing out that, other companies don't observe and celebrate delivery milestones like this. Of course, Tesla, is still, 16 years old. But eventually, are we going to reach a point where we don't sort of give Tesla these free points just because it did really what many other car manufacturers that have experience with manufacturing are usually able to do?
I think we're probably 2-3 years out on that. I think Tesla is still a relatively young company. Elon Musk has such a large personality and Twitter presence and all of those things. So right now, everything they do is news. So good, bad, it's on the front page of Autoblog, on Yahoo Finance, everybody else. So I think right now, deliveries are just sort of part of that narrative. And I expect that to continue for a couple of years. And, right now, I think that's actually a good thing for them.
Hey, Greg, sticking with the electric and also the autonomous tech space here, Alphabet's self-driving venture Waymo has been given permission to transport passengers in California. This is according to TechCrunch. So, California, that's the biggest state in the union. They've been really trying to push ahead on a lot of these issues. What would it mean? What do you think it means for the autonomous driving space overall?
Well, I think this is just the next step on the road to more common autonomous driving. I think this is something that is a good step for them. I think it's important to note this is a controlled setting. So these test vehicles are still going to have backup drivers, and it's a fairly small scale program with a lot of parameters set in place. So I think this is interesting, and I actually think it's a good thing.
Greg, Ford will reportedly release some form of new supercar on July 4th. Any sense of what that may be?
So we're expecting this to be a version of the Ford GT. This is sort of like their race-bred supercar. I can't wait to see it. This is essentially the iconic race car that they brought to Le Mans about 50 years ago, and then they've sold in limited volume since then. So I think Ford's got some fireworks in store for the 4th. It should be really cool.
So there's a lot of auto news, and some of it's kind of sad because the auto industry legend Lee Iacocca passed away just yesterday. And it's interesting, I remember, he had all these books, he was on the cover, he was like a best-selling author. He was just this large man, just in corporate America, that everybody knew. That's kind of how I think of him, as somebody that's closer to the auto industry. What do you think his legacy is?
Well, actually, I think what you just said really sums it up neatly. He was one of the first crossover CEOs that the car industry saw. He wasn't just a celebrity in Detroit or in California or Europe. He was a global celebrity. In the late 1980s, people thought he could literally run for president. So he was a larger-than-life personality. He rescued Chrysler from the brink of bankruptcy in the early 1980s, responsible for the Chrysler minivans, which still endure today as sales successes. And people might forget, he actually also really helped market the Ford Mustang when he was in Ford in the 1960s. So he really touched a lot of different products, a lot of different marketing strategies, and he's definitely one of the legendary CEOs of the 20th century.
Do you think that the minivan will survive much longer? I say this as somebody who has driven a minivan and enjoyed it. I no longer do, but I mean it's so iconic with him. And you said sales are still doing well, but like, come on, what is the lifespan of the minivan?
I think it's still got some life left in it. Here at Autoblog, we have a Chrysler Pacifica actually, and it's a hybrid.
Wait, you guys have one that you're testing, or like that you guys keep and you're driving around?
It's one we're testing. It gets us 30 miles of electric range, and it's really strong. The Honda Odyssey is really good too. I will say this, it's definitely a niche market. It's not for everybody, but you could put so much stuff in them. I'm going to take my son, my wife, my dog up north for the holiday here, and we're going to get everything possibly that we can in this Pacifica. So there's definitely a market for them.
Greg Migliore is the Autoblog editor-in-chief. I hope you have a great holiday in your minivan. I personally like that one that has the vacuum in it, but I'm not sure that's the Pacifica. But have a great holiday, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.